Hello. I'm Emma Dammer, or Emma Davison, and this is my channel, I Am. So I've set this up with the intention of shining truth on areas that I feel like changes really are needed. So this might be in society or maybe even personally within. So it is just really a platform of truth, healing, and just providing support to each other, just supporting each other on our journey to self-discovery. So I've got a story to tell, and I have been meeting so many people, just especially in the past, few months. I've been meeting a lot. I've heard, meeting a lot of people, but I've been hearing a lot of stories that I just feel needs to be brought to the surface, because I just feel without the truth of it, like, how can changes actually happen? So this is basically what this channel is about. So I do have a few people who do want me to talk to them, interview them, so these videos will be coming up. So I'm hoping to get one posted on a weekly basis, and also other videos which is just for advice on maybe dealing with depression, anxieties, just healing, self-love, all those important things, your health that tend to be really put down to the bottom of the list these days. So it's a very important, I find, very important part of our well-being. So so I'm going to be starting off with my story. So in my life, I do feel I've been suppressed. I feel like my voice has never really been listened to, and it's always at those points where you've needed the system, you've needed the government the most, that you've just realised they're just not there for you. I just feel also the control does extend to education. It's the conditioning of the mind that we go through our education that actually contributes to the our happiness, really, growing in, because we're controlled in so many areas, like down to when we have our lunch at work, or when we can go to the toilet, you've got to ask, or just little things. It's like when you can sleep, or how to behave in public. You can't, or when you're at school, you can't just dance into the classroom because it's seen as bad behaviour. Just little things that I just feel is just actually a big violation of freedom, and is a big reason as to why the society is so broken today, and why there's so much pain and suffering today. So really, I'm just in the process, really, of just shedding everything that this has put on me, just try and get it off, and just to find out who I really am, and just go for what I truly want in life. And I hope to inspire others to do the same, because I feel we're all worth that, and it's our birthright to be free. So yeah, I don't know where to begin. So I was born in England, and I did go back. We were back and forth. So me, my brother, and my mum, we were back and forth between Bath and Nigeria and Lagos in my early years. So the last time I went to Nigeria, I was 11, and we were there whilst my mum was just running her two businesses. She had one in Bath and one in Bristol. So Africa's amazing. Had some beautiful times there, really miss it. I remember coming back when I first came to England, I really struggled with the fruits. Like, they just didn't taste the same, and eggs and everything. So I was one of those little kids who's like, yeah. But yeah, what was I thinking? Where was I? So yeah, we were in Nigeria when my mum was running her businesses. So when we came back, everything just wasn't the same. Everything just felt really weird, like things were going missing from our house. Like, it would be really odd things, so stuff that you wouldn't really necessarily report to the police. So it'd be like pots, pans, maybe like toothbrushes, you know, just really odd things just going missing from the house. But anyway, yeah, there was just weird stuff. But anyway, my mum lost her businesses, so she will be talking to you about this. I'll be talking to her like next week at some point, so I'll be posting that video up next week, so keep posted. But she will tell you more about her side of the story. But so she did lose her businesses, her house, a fully paid house, everything, and it was all illegal. So it was like, it wasn't fair. Yeah, you'll find out more information about that. So when she lost all that, her and her 2 kids were homeless. So yeah, we were on the streets. So we came to Bristol. I remember we were out of school for like a year. So this is year 8, I believe. Year 7, 8. Yeah, and then we were kind of in hostels and stuff, dotting around. There were some good times there, really. But we were just kids, and my mum was very good at protecting us, really, and shielding us from the stress of the situation on the outside. Bless her, she was just perfect. She was like one of those women that was always just trying to help others. So she'd be sitting with homeless people on the streets just for hours, just to keep them company, working in soup kitchens. She was very well known for just doing really good things in Bath. So yeah, so that was, well, we lost everything. So yeah, when we came back to Bath, we were placed in, it was in a council house. So it was a very, very, yeah, we had racist neighbours. She would just be shouting at us, like being like, you know, the N-word, go home, monkey, monkey, you know, and the police would never do anything about it. So they would just be like, oh yeah, you know, it's fine, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, my mum started defending herself. You know, she would never be physical. She couldn't even hurt a fly. But I tell you, you know, if you go too far, we'll mouth up. So, you know, she'll be like, no, you know, you don't talk to me like that. You're racist, blah, blah, blah. And the police were called on her. So that this racist woman called the police. And my mum was taken in and then sectioned, taken into hospital. So, you know, we had social services. They were talking to us. So she called social services too. So this Barbara lady, and yeah. So these social workers, we remember them being very like leading questions. So we were quite young, and now we look back on those questions that were asked, to be asking a child that, it's a very leading way that they would do it. It's like putting the words in your mouth, but not really giving you a chance to like talk, if that makes sense. So it just felt like it was like we would, you know, yeah, it wasn't right. So yeah, that's what I kind of remember. So we weren't able to see her for like a week and a half. So we were placed in care. Like, I remember always asking, where is she? We just want to go home. We just want to go home. And they were, you know, it just wasn't. And yeah, there were points where we were separated, because Mum was sectioned on a few, like at least 6 times over the course of our teenage years. And it was only when I became 18, I'll come to that I was able to stop it, if that makes sense. But yeah, as we were kids, we didn't have a say. And I remember the first time we went to see her, you know, they had been talking about, they were saying they want to give her medication. And, you know, even as a 12-year-old child, I was asking, like, surely, you know, I was like saying, have you had a consultation? Like, they were saying that they're waiting to have an assessment. And what shocked me is that the assessment is like, it can be a 10-15 minutes chat, and then from that 10 to 15 minute chat, they make decisions on such big like life altering drugs, like mind altering drugs, which I feel is it's abuse. Like, you can't know someone from just talking to someone for 10 minutes. You can't know what you can't diagnose someone, not a mental, not something that's in the brain. I don't think it can be. I think surely, rather than going straight to medicines, to the injections options and all those really strong things that can have so much strong side effects, surely the first option should be therapy. In my head, that's logical. So therapy, get to know them, and then make a decision from there. I'm personally very against medication anyway. I feel that should be last resort, and this country is way too quick to give them out, if that's my honest opinion. Yeah, it's all in nature. You'll hear me talk about nature so much, but everything we need is in nature. Yeah, so that's my question. So yeah, when they finally started giving her those injections, so they had that 15-20 minute chat with her, they gave her the injections, and then she just changed. Like, I remember going to see her, and she was just in bed, and her face was all swollen up. She could barely move her arms, and you know, she just couldn't recognize me. And I was like, Mum, I could barely recognize her because she had changed so much physically. It was like her cheeks had swollen up, and I remember, like, even just trying to go for a walk with her, her arms would be like this, and like she'd be like a 5-minute walk would be like 25 minutes. And this is honestly the most active woman you would have met. Like, she'd be running up climbing frames, like he said, you know, like just climbing up, running around with us. And before you know it, you know, she just couldn't walk, and she couldn't eat yet. The weight gain was ridiculous. So it wasn't a good quality of life for her. They'd ruined, yeah, they'd basically taken away who she was. I remember the doctors, they it was like they thought it was a joke. I was just really shocked at the lack of compassion and almost the kind of enjoyment behind their eyes and stuff. Like, I'd be crying and being like, what are you doing to her? And they'd just be like, trust us. But it's like the grin, you know, I know intentions, man. Like, and when you're a kid, you know so much more than, you know. So I just don't remember really trusting them. But yeah, anyway, so she was in there for like 6 months, I think, for the first time. And then from that point, our life, we weren't left alone. It was all the time they'd be knocking. She was like pretending to take the medication because the medication was killing her. She was saying that she was getting more detached from herself. She was getting suicidal thoughts, which she'd never had her whole life. Yeah, she will explain the feelings, but she genuinely didn't think she'd actually be able to survive that experience. And to finally come out of the hospital and just be written up, but then still have them knocking on your door every day, like that constant fear that you're going to be put back into that environment. That was the state of fear we lived in, and that neighbour would be forever, you know, just making sneering remarks, and we felt we couldn't even stand up for ourselves because look who won. Yeah. But yeah, so it was a very weird time, really bad time actually. And the thing that bothered me the most is that the mental health system, they say they have a duty of care. But the thing is, when my mum left the hospital in a worse state than she was in when she went in. Like, she wasn't even in a bad state when she went in. This is the thing. But she wasn't able to do anything. Like, she couldn't even walk to the shop. She couldn't cook. She couldn't clean. She couldn't move her arms and stuff. And even with all these physical symptoms, we are still 15 years later fighting for PIP, which is a disability allowance. We are still fighting for that 15 years later, and she was last hospitalized last year, 2019, and nearly died from the medication that was given. So I will be given that story, what happened last year in 2019. I will be given that story in part 2, because I've got a lot of advice. If you've got any family that happens to be in that situation, that you're struggling with maybe objections, because I did try to get her discharged, but they objected with the threat, saying that they could remove me as her next of kin, as a power of attorney, if I objected this, because I don't have a best interest at heart. So that's what they were trying to say. That's what they were trying to tell me. But I will go into more details about that. Maybe do a whole video on how to how it all works, basically, because it's very important to know how it works to be able to get out of it. But yeah, so where was I? So this just happened throughout our whole childhood. We'll move from place to place. Things were still going missing from our house, but they were getting more and more. It was, even a whole dustbin. Like, I'm not joking. Like, I remember our kitchen bin literally just disappeared one morning, and we're like, what is going on? So it felt, it was just crazy times. So they kept on sectioning her just for silly reasons. I remember even one time, so this was on another house, we just moved, but we'd moved to even a worse street. This was in Twerton, where the whole neighbourhood were racist. And so we barely lived there for maybe a couple of months, I feel it must have been a couple of months. It's all a blur. It's like the sections, it's all blurry in my eyes. But yeah, I mean the order, that's what I mean. But yeah, and I remember, so it was all about her bins, so she'd been taking her bins out a day early or something, a day earlier than it should have been out. But it doesn't take 9 neighbours at your door to tell you this, does it? No. So it took 9 neighbours coming knocking on her door, and it took a numerous amount of racial comments. So the N-word, going home, blah, 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 because my mum was like, right, I don't need all this in front of my house. I've just opened the door. I don't know who you guys are. And now you guys are like shouting at me, saying I'm taking the bins out, like it's the worst crime in the world. So obviously then they called the police, because she defended herself. She was like, please just get off my property. I'm, just trying to have my dinner, and it's a day early. It's like, this doesn't call for this kind of abuse. But one of them called the police. All of them basically filed. Yeah, it was ridiculous. And then she was sectioned again. So this is what they were waiting for. They were lit, and they were. I remember some of them were even saying, "Oh, we're going to get you sectioned again. We're going to get you sectioned again." Because Bath. Let me tell you a bit about Bath. Sorry. So Bath is. I remember the population. I think it's like 94.6%. White residents. I think it's 2.8% Asian, 1.6, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's around these figures. It is definitely around these figures. And it's 1.6% black, and then, 0.8% black, and 1.6% mixed race. So that's the population that we lived in. The school of the city that I lived in, the school I went to, it was literally, I think I was like one of like 3 mixed race people. There was 1 black, and then there was like 3 Asians in the whole school. So I'm just telling you about the environment I was. And I'll be honest with you, what shocked me, and this is even as a kid, I remember going into the hospital and I was confused, because majority of the people in the mental health hospital were black. So in such a a prominently white city, why is it the case? I was saying, is it like the 1.6% black people are in the hospitals? The 2.8% Asians happen to be like a lot of students, so they tend to study there a lot, but you won't really see many residents there. Like, I don't remember seeing many. I don't remember seeing many black people. I don't remember seeing any like Muslims at all. It was just, yeah. So it's just a very good thing to take note of, really, because, yeah. So that was really the teenage years. It was just a state, we lived our lives in such a state of fear. I feared that my mum wouldn't survive. I feared I'd lose her at the hands of them. And it got me in a state of just feeling like where the government should be there to support us, it just felt that all our problems actually came from the government, from the society, and without it we wouldn't have had to deal with all this. Everything I felt we were tackling was all the hurdles and all the abuse from systems. You know, we were laughed at in council places, offices, because maybe, you know, just laughed at because of our situation by office staff in the council, kicked out. It was just ridiculous, like for no reasons whatsoever. I'll be covering more about the services that we received, in very, very extreme circumstances, which came on a bit later on. But yeah, so that's a very quick summary of growing up in Bath, really. Yeah, so we then moved to Bristol because we'd had it. I couldn't deal with it. It's like everyone knew our businesses and everyone kind of enjoyed seeing us kind of go it, you know, because my mum you know, we'd struggled a bit when we first arrived in England, but my mum, as a single mother, managed to get, set up all these businesses, you know, pay off her house. She'd managed to do all that. But the thing is, people seemed to really enjoy it more when we were sinking, regardless of how good a person she was, of how much she really tried to help the community. I found there were a lot of people in that city that did not want us to see us successful. So yeah. But anyway, in Bristol, so my brother and my mum lived in a place, so it's private renting, but we'd applied for the housing benefits. Obviously, the housing benefits literally took 10 months. And obviously, how can you afford a 2-bedroom place on your own? You know, we couldn't afford the place. So my mum still was recovering, so these medications that they were giving her were so strong that they'd still be in her bloodstream a year and a half later. She would still be she was in so much pain. She'd be saying her joints were hurting, she couldn't walk, and this is all from a year later still. She couldn't move her fingers properly. It was only after 9 months she was able to really start moving her arms down. So that's how bad it was, and then not even to mention the mental state that it gave her, the issues that it gave her mentally. She was just not in this world. She felt like she was just up there somewhere, didn't even exist. She felt restless but too tired. You know, she felt like she needed to cry but didn't know why and didn't have the energy to cry. So this was the kind of, you know, no matter what we said to the doctors, were never listened to. So that's kind of what the medication does. So that's why she wasn't fit to work. Since she's been hospitalised, she's never really been fit to work again. This is someone who really enjoyed what she did. But yeah, so 10 months just to get housing benefits sorted. But obviously by this point, racked up a lot of debt. The landlords were not happy. We got evicted. They got evicted. So I'm trying to remember what happened at this point. I happened to have a room that my mum was able to stay with me for a bit, but obviously in rented accommodation, you guys know what it's like. You're renting a room in a shared place, and not necessarily everyone in that place. We have your mum being there, or, you know, at one point I lived with a live-in landlord who was charging me extra just to have her there for two nights a week, and I was saying I need her there full time, you know, and he was like, nope, you know, it's under your name, I can't have her there more than 2 nights. And I was literally paying money extra just for those 2 nights. So these are the kind of hurdles that we were always trying to come through. The rent prices don't really make it possible to really support you know, a whole fat is just ridiculous. They don't make it possible. But yeah, it literally got to the point that we were having to sneak her in. We were that desperate because the landlord wasn't having it, and living in these conditions too, it just caused this bubble of anxiety within us all, because obviously it was so stressful. We were also scared that the landlord would be coming down and be like, "Hello, what are you doing in here? Get out." Yeah, so my anxiety was bad. I was having panic attacks daily, and it got to the point I wasn't even able to leave the house. So I wasn't able to go to work for 10 days. I was obviously, with the stress in my back, being like, I'm not getting any other support. I'm not getting any carers allowance. I'm not getting any other, I'm not getting benefits. I have to go back to work. So, it was took so much strength just to get up and get out of the house, when all I felt was panic, and I couldn't even look at people because I was just in this state of constant fear, because I was so worried about my mum, and I was just thinking it was just a very dark time that I managed to get out of. So so that was a very dark period, but we got out of it. I'm going to stop there. The next video I'm going to do is going to cover how she got out of the homelessness, how we dealt with it, and obviously the last experience in hospital, which was just last year, how she nearly died from it, and how we finally broken the chains, and we've stopped them now, and they're gonna leave us alone now, but how we've just managed to come out of the other side, and I'm hoping that you guys can learn a lot from it. I also just really want to say thank you. There's so many people I've met in the past few months that also want to tell their story on this channel. I'm really happy. But thank you for all the top advice, and thank you so much to my family. I will always love you forever. So much appreciation. But I'll see you in a few days. Bye.